My name is Alice Tovar. I am currently a reading instructional coach working with my mentor, Patricia Garcia, to earn my principal certificate. The following leading video was held with Mrs. Jessica Ibarra, a monolingual fourth grade teacher who teaches reading and writing. Mrs. Gwendolyn Holland, a monolingual fourth grade social studies teacher. Mrs. Paloma Crena, a third, fourth, and fifth grade dual language teacher who teaches reading and writing. We held this meeting to discuss a cultural diversity concern that had come to light in a previous meeting. Our district is 98% Hispanic, and our campus is 99% Hispanic. We feel that our students are not exposed to any cultures besides their own, so we wanted to provide them with the opportunity to learn and experience other cultures they may encounter in the community or in their history lessons and may have a misconception about these cultures today. The team met to discuss the TEKS, brainstorm ideas, make a plan of action, and set new meeting days to discuss further plans. I chose this activity because a teacher had mentioned the lack of cultural diversity on our campus and how our interracial students have difficulty identifying with their non-Hispanic culture. The teacher gave me the idea to select this activity to get other teachers' input and perspectives. In planning with my mentor, I shared with her the teachers' concerns. She and I agreed to hear out the teachers and flow with the meeting. The meeting was to be between 20 and 40 minutes, and the project could be based on the teachers' suggestions to motivate teachers and increase buy-in. The project would go from now, which is February, to the end of the school year. Teachers would use resources they have in their classroom or in the library, and other meetings would be held to move the project along. At the end of the meeting, I surveyed the teachers involved to check and improve my use of time management, effective communication, collaboration, listening, and the relevance of the topics discussed. We will now go into the meeting over the lack of cultural diversity. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good, good.
Yep.
So we're here today to talk about diversity issues on campus.
Right.
Okay. So previously we talked about how our campus is 99% Hispanic. As a district, we're 98% Hispanic. And one of the big issues that we have is the lack of cultural diversity. So we're here today to talk about what kind of project we might be able to do as a campus to enrich our students in cultural diversity. So if we can look right now at our TEKS and see what we can find as TEKS addresses that topic. If you look, your pages are already tabbed for it so that we don't spend as much time on that. I believe it's under 19.
So, regional and local persons. So like Cinco de Mayo, Fiesta in San Antonio, they still all have to do the same type of culture. Right? So we have to find something other than that, wouldn't we?
Right. And that was one of the things that we were talking about in class, that how there's different groups that have come over to Texas to help colonize the state of Texas. So we have New Braunfels, which is German, and then we also have
Don't they have like wars?
what?
Wars-Fest, isn't that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Oktoberfest.
That's Oktoberfest though? It's a different one. Right, Wars-Fest.
They
It's
probably-
still German.
Yeah, it's still German.
Oktoberfest is German too?
Yes.
Oktoberfest, yeah.
So German for,
And then we have, what's the other one?
Well, we can remember that the ones that are listed here, they're suggestions. So these are ones that
Right.
we have to include, but they're also just suggestions. So
It says such as, right,
we can add some more.
right.
Cultures are we thinking of?
I don't know if there's any like with African American cultures here in San Antonio. In celebrations?
We have Juneteenth.
We just had the march.
Yeah.
And
Oh, the
Dr.
march
Martin
is,
Luther King.
Dr. Martin Luther King. The march is when? It's in,
just passed.
oh,
It's January 15th. It's his birthday, so they try to do it the Monday afterwards.
But isn't February Black History Month?
Black History Month.
So we
right.
can tie it up with that and do something like, okay, how did this celebrate? Or how did this have to do with Texas?
Right.
And can tie it in. 'cause it's
what
like-
happened in Texas during this time frame?
Right.
Because
Especially when you talk about when Texas is talking about becoming a nation of their own, the biggest issue of them not being annexed into the United States was because there was the Civil War that was starting up at that time, and so Texas believed that it was okay to have slaves. So which is why they fit in with the Confederate States as opposed to the Union. That's why the Union did not want Texas to join, because that would be just another state that would help the Confederate Army.
Yeah.
And they already had so much of the Mexican population that created Texas. So therefore, that's another thing. French was one of the first flags to fly over Texas. So the French helped colonize Texas.
But what about even like, I know we're doing like histories and stuff like that, but what about foods? Kids know a lot, like we just read something about how in our test there was the pizza, how pizza was brought to the United States or to the New World, and how it was created, and they gave some history information. So even I think that, that pizza wasn't, brought to us, wasn't brought there by American. Yeah, it's not American food, it's Italian. As many times as we see it on the, street corners, pizza here, pizza there. I think that would be.
It has become an American staple, is what it is.
Yeah.
So it's not.
But where did it come from? How was it created? Who created it?
Are we trying to do like one thing a month though?
I think that would be beneficial.
How do y'all feel about one thing a month, one thing a week? What do y'all?
But it also depends on how many cultures we're talking about. Because if we've got 10 months in a school year.
Well, why don't we list cultures? And then if we can't do, like, what if we do history and some kind of food group that because most cultures have their specific type of, have you tried this, or have you tried that, or, I think everything, because you can even bring it to the stuff that has happened recently, some of the history that we have, like 9/11, unfortunately, that's a tough situation to talk about, but I think, like, even that culture behind, people that, the people that, they're not all like that, so
Right, those are extremes, right?
Yeah.
So like when that's one, let's stick with what cultures we're doing, and then maybe there we can go with what Ms. Crane is saying and find out, once we have how many cultures we're looking at doing, and see, what time frame do we have to be able to do them in.
Right.
So we have African American, German,
German, French.
I'm trying to think of like the Alamo. You know how they have like the different flags over Texas, and like they'll have like different people's nationality linked to
Right.
it. What did it have?
I know there's.
It's
It's a Spanish.
flags
It's a
over the
Spanish
Alamo.
flag.
Is that what it's called, flags over the Alamo?
Six Flags over Texas. So
Let's see if it
it's
doesn't give us the.
Spain.
It's going to give us.
It's Spain, France, Mexico,
wait.
and then
I understand that we're trying to do like
see, and that's another
the
thing.
problem Hispanic versus like Spaniard. They're completely different.
They're completely different.
So we could do Spaniard.
Yeah, we could do
Not-
the Spanish culture.
Yeah.
Well, see, even then,
Even Mexico.
even
like,
Mexican culture, it's
It's
watered down
different.
in America as opposed to
Yeah,
actually.
because, and I tell the kids, they'll ask me like, are you Mexican? Well, technically no, because I wasn't born in Mexico. My parents weren't born in Mexico. My grandparents weren't born in Mexico. So we are,
Your ties are
we don't have anybody. If I go to Mexico tomorrow, there's no way I could survive. Like, I don't know anybody here to help.
Do we want to add
So
on it?
Mexico.
Mexico.
Like just Mexico, Mexican culture.
Right.
Mexican.
Because although some things may be the same, like there's quinceañeras and things
Right.
like that, there's a
Some of
lot
it-
of difference. There's
Right.
a lot of difference. Over here, it's just like a
Because
party.
there's
so
Spanish-
there's
there's conversation Spanish and then there's academic Spanish.
Right, right.
You know, and a lot of our families know the conversation Spanish. You still have to train them to understand the academic Spanish.
Well, even at that, you can go between like Cinco de Mayo is really not important
In Mexico.
Right,
No.
it's 16 de
It's
septiembre.
16 de septiembre, which
That's
is really
the important part, yes.
Which means
But again, that's the American standpoint of, oh, Cinco de Mayo, big
But
thing.
yeah, like if we make it really apparent, this is
Right.
completely different.
I don't
Right.
think I'm getting the right thing. It says Tennessee and Botswana.
No. But
So
I
we
think
have-
with what we're going with is good. African American, German, French, Spaniard, Mexican culture.
No, I know what we're looking at here, but does it have to stick with just Texas, or can it be with Texan people who are now living in Texas?
Well, see, that's the thing is that when we talk about the colonization of, for example, Stephen F. Austin, when he brought people over as an empresario, he was bringing people over from the United States nation into Texas. So even the melting pot that the U.S. was prior to Texas joining the Union, you had all those cultures coming into Texas. So yeah, they would unfortunately have to acclimate really quickly into the Mexican culture because Mexico said from the beginning, you had to become Roman Catholic and you had to learn Spanish. Point blank, that's just what needed to happen. So a lot of them acclimated because they wanted the land. So you have English, French, Spanish, Italian, all these people that were leaving their homes to come to the New World that were also moving into Texas because they wanted the land. So you can hit any real
Well, yeah.
culture and you're going to have it here in Texas. It
It
just is
says,
not
yeah.
here in San Antonio in this part
It
of
says
town.
here, like it says that groups to Texas. Every one of these teaks
Mhm.
involves Texas and how it relates, how the culture relates to Texas, how the people, how the
Right.
religion, everything relates to Texas.
Mhm.
So I think we do have to tie it back into somehow.
Yeah, we can do like this huge Venn diagram of like Texas culture or whatever.
But see, you can even, if you even go to Northside, for example, I have friends who teach at Northside, and they have, there's a school in the middle of Northside that has Somalian kids that have come over, and they're in the same room as somebody who is from Iraq. These people do not talk to each other. They're enemies, if anything. And they're directly from their countries. They are immigrants into this country. That's another thing that, I mean, unfortunately, these kids don't have the exposure to it, and they need to have that because it's about having respect for another culture, whether you understand it or not. You still have to accept the fact that they are there and they are here. You know, they are Texan now.
Well, hopefully with doing something like this, that would expose them to other cultures. So having said something like that, what about Asian culture?
Right.
Yeah,
We have that festival here. I don't know when it is, but
there's Chinese New Year.
is it Chinese New
Yeah,
Year?
the cultural.
Texas culture.
Yeah, down
The
in
Texas
Institute of
culture.
Texan Cultures.
Institute of Texas Culture has the Chinese New Year,
Chinese.
right? They have that, but they also have a German festival too.
Yeah.
Wonder
They
if that's
have
something
free
you could bring here.
Yeah, we could. Because it's free. Mm-hmm. Institute of Texan Cultures will do presentations.
But what if we even did like instead of our carnival, like we have a fall carnival, instead of our carnival being so, I don't know, making a carnival about Halloween, why wouldn't we could make a carnival about culture and have like the different food groups in the cultures and then maybe different
The
music
booths,
playing.
right.
And then, I mean, different attire, because I know certain cultures have certain attire. You know,
Right.
not every culture, and I'm sure there's something specific to
To them.
It's just an idea. Maybe that could be at the very
Culture.
end. Once
Like
we've
cultural
already
arts, when they-
experienced,
yeah.
once we've already experienced like the French and Spaniards and so on, then that at the end could be like the big celebration of
Right.
we'll stay after school, do the
Well, yeah, and then a lot of kids like think about Asian like Chinese food and stuff like that. A lot of them think, oh, this is what Chinese food is, and it technically is
It's
really
not.
not
No,
anything
it's
like
not.
what we.
Americanized.
Yeah, so like
Again,
things like
everything's
that.
watered down.
You know, we read about making mini pizzas and that they used flatbread. They called it flatbread. Well, I mean, I would have So just little things like that, I think would be a good thing, a cultural festival.
That'd be a great way to end that. So let's look at the ones we have. We have African American, German, French, Spaniard, Mexican culture, and Asian. Very neat if you want to ask.
See, an Asian is,
Yeah, it's
it's like saying Latinos.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much
Yeah.
everything at that point.
Yeah, I think.
You got
But I mean, we can also,
Korean.
I think, feel the ones that are pick the culture that we feel has made the most impact or that is more present here in Texas. Maybe look up the numbers and
demographics.
percentages of how many. I mean, they might just be considered Asian. It might not even
Right.
be.
And
Once
that's,
we do some more planning,
Right.
we'll get down to the nitty gritty on it.
I think so, and decide which group that we could choose. You know, because I don't even think the kids realize that it consists of Japanese and
right.
Chinese.
They just think Asian food.
Yeah,
That's
Yes.
pretty much
Chinese
everything.
food, Asian, Chinese.
They
Yeah,
struggle to even figure out what the word Asian is.
Right.
Poor guys, they're learning. Okay, so then let's think about the timeline then. Since we have so many, and we're breaking up Asian into even more subpopulations.
Right.
How many do we have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this one's going to be broken up even more. And with all these great ideas, I'm thinking as we go, we might even add some more. Do we want to do every week, every 2
No,
weeks,
I think
every
it should be
month?
every.
I think it should be a monthly thing.
Because like we're reading the chapter book on Number of the Stars now, and the Jewish culture. There's so many things that I do before I can even get us into the book, or before we read another chapter, we have to learn about this,
There's
so
a
we
lot
know
of
the
prior
setting,
knowledge, right.
so we know where part of the world this is taking place in, because obviously it's not anywhere in the United States, but there's the World War II, World War I, everything that's involved. So I think it requires a good month. And then we check out books from the library.
Right.
We have like picture books that we go through that kind of relate to the novels so they can understand. So if that's in reading, we could do a full month of it.
Right.
But
Okay, so considering where we are, we're in February right now. That would give us March, April, and May. So it would only give us 3 months. It would give us a good start for this year, and then next year we would start full blown.
how many 6 weeks do we have? What if we did like 6 weeks? 6 weeks, right?
So that would break it a little bit less even. So we would only do one culture 6 weeks.
Because if you think about it, your culture, your 6 weeks time frame, we get started and then third week comes and it's testing and all of that stuff. And then we start again and then it's 6 weeks, there's testing and everything on
That's 4
the due dates. So technically it's 4 weeks, including like whatever vacations we have, except for that long break when we have that long time period from I think September to November that we
Yeah.
don't have like hardly any days off. That would be probably the only time it's not broken up. I think it should be 6 weeks.
You're thinking 6 weeks is great, and I see your wheels turning. What are you thinking?
I see we have very valid points, but we also need to think like, how much are we going to highlight? Or if so, if we're gonna do that, then we should really look into how much impact it makes in Texas. You know what I'm saying?
Pick the ones that
Yeah.
really, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think pick the ones that really make that big impact.
And it
Well,
sounds like
but
we've
you also-
integrated into all sorts of things.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Now, here's my question. If we're doing this school-wide, 4th grade is the only one that talks about Texas. Clearly identified as Texas. When you look at 3rd grade is talking about communities. All of these fit into that. It has nothing to do with Texas. 5th grade does U.S. history. So for them, it's all of those work as well. So 4th grade is the only one that's restrained, but not necessarily, and that's why I keep saying it's
feel
not
like it is.
necessarily restraint in the fact that this is such as or including, but all of these make a big impact in Texas, I believe.
Well, we can look at it as the cultures that we'll do, and right now we're talking about it as it impacts Texas for 4th
Okay.
grade. But
Okay.
then I'll meet with everyone else,
Okay.
and we'll do
And see
how
what
it
it
impacts
is.
their grade level, and we'll just say we'll be for this month or 6 weeks, we'll be doing African American culture,
Right.
and then they'll address it for their teams.
For their okay. That'll work.
So what do we want to agree with on the time frame?
y'all are my main group as to how I'm getting all the info. So together we're coming up with the ideas, and that's how we're going to present it to the rest of the groups.
I think it makes more sense to do it every 6 weeks, just because December is cut to 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That December we're not going
And
to.
so is August. I mean, if you count August, I mean, that's 1 week.
And it's like to get them started real quick. Like on this is it's not the norm for us to do that in
Right.
August. I think
So 6 weeks
the
would
6
be more
weeks is probably
beneficial.
the best.
6-week time frame?
Yeah.
Because even as I'm thinking of like, okay, Mexican culture, I'm like, okay, well, I can do Esperanza Renacen. Well, that's going to take me a good amount. It's not something
That's
that's
not-
yeah,
right.
I can't finish within a month.
But yeah, I agree. It doesn't finish quickly.
And this lends itself not only, we're talking about it for reading, for social studies, but it's very cross, curricular. The way math is done in Asia compared to how we do it, or math in Mexico compared to how we do it. I mean,
Not
A
even
lot of
the
that.
school system and what they do
Right.
in Asian countries and
right,
what they do here.
what the expectations are, for the kids.
Mhm.
It would be good exposure to see, because again, if we're talking about there's so many different ways to solve a math problem, well, here's another way. And maybe for some of them, it makes more sense.
Or for some who like to play sports, we know that the Asian countries, they are all school,
Right.
everything's school. They have tutors after school. The teachers work till
And then
hours.
classical music.
And so those types of things, like, well, how would you feel if you weren't allowed to do this?
Right.
It's different. Your days are shorter versus these people,
Mhm.
this group. So. Or in countries that they don't get to go to school.
Exactly.
So
Right.
that's okay.
Let's line them up right now and see which ones we would want to tackle first. We have African American, German, French, Spaniard, Mexican culture, and Asian. Which one would we want to do first?
I think the Mexican culture is the
When are we
easiest
starting?
to start with.
As soon as we get it all planned out, so reasonably, what would y'all think
For the beginning or now?
for now?
Oh,
Next
Um,
week.
in the next 6 weeks, so in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that way it gives us enough time to prepare. And with that, though, we need to also think how much or what are we going to ask of us to do as well? Because we have so much that we need to cover and so much stuff that we need to go on. Okay, well, what would that entail? One lesson of cultural diversity within our content area a week, or how would that?
And my question is, okay, so who is doing this? Like, I know it's easy for me to
Reading, yeah.
do it in reading. Like, I have books,
Easy.
that can fit everything. Like, you can find something. But for like others, like in math or in social studies, it's pretty easy if it fits the teach because it's going through Texas. So,
Right.
I think that's okay too. But like science and math, I feel like it's a little bit more difficult. So, are they going to also
So that's a
be
good question right here
included,
that we
or
can
is
talk
it
about.
only going to be reading and social studies when it fits?
Well, see, for science, you've got inventors from
Oh,
every,
nice.
ethnicity and background.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter what genre of science you're talking about, whether it's physical science or earth and space or whatever the case may be. I guarantee you, there has been somebody who's played a big role there from different backgrounds that can be brought in.
And then that hits on like biographies and autobiographies.
Biographies,
I think that would be
inventions.
Yeah, and so simple, even like little things you can do here in class based. It's not necessarily the invention that they created or things that they did, but that would tie into whatever you have to teach.
Right.
Magnetism, things like that.
I'm sorry.
No, magnetism. I was gonna say things like that, like where you had specific inventions for
Right.
certain things.
So that person might just be a fact a day, or not even a fact a day, but maybe a fact a week.
I think that's very similar to what, with the
But math and science are so closely related
Yeah,
that, you know,
because I mean, you have calculations to figure out and
right,
it's not
for any of our labs,
that's what I'm thinking, equations and stuff like that go hand in hand.
right. It may be something that we use for measurement, that they can do in math.
And it could just be, even if it's a difficult equation, like something that they're not going to understand, but this person was like a mathematician and he was, you know, this culture and living here and he created this
Right.
equation and it's being used throughout
Right.
the world because it's, you know, math is.
Maybe something that we can talk about later or if we have time today, but it's not something that's going to take over the entire curriculum, but instead a project is just supposed to enrich the kids
Right.
on diversity. So the more you put it into your lessons, the better. But it might just be something that they're doing for 15 minutes or 30 minutes.
Right.
Maybe one time a week or maybe a few days is something they will have to talk about the next time we sit to plan.
I think for us, it could either be one, we could do novels with it because like we're doing Number of the Stars right now and it really works with the kids and they're learning a lot about everything. And then we tie in the what do they call it? Mentor text with that. Or if you didn't want to focus on novels and doing things like that because you're trying to hit that curriculum all the time. Because of course the novels will probably be historical fiction or realistic fiction. That's pretty much what we'll hit. And the mentor text you can bring in are different. But what you could do is a read aloud a week. Could be a novel a mentor text, read aloud that has to do with one of the cultures, and then maybe do a quick activity based on that. That way it's not taking up your entire,
Right.
you know, time. And one mentor text a week would cover that 6 weeks.
Could be an activity in one of your centers too. You go along with one of those readings.
The read aloud.
So back to which one would y'all want to put into effect first? Which one to go? African American, German, French, Spaniard, Mexican culture, Asian. Asian are big.
I think for us, since we're finishing the Jewish culture, Number of the Stars, I think to get a different view of the German culture would be a good idea. Because right now they think of Germany as like this harsh country that they created the Nazis and they got Hitler, and so they're kind of like,
To be able
don't
to
like
see the
this.
other-
So to be able to see that there was good people, they know that there's good people in the country that were helping, but to be able to see that other things came out of that country besides just this man that.
Is everybody okay with Germany? Go with the German culture first? Okay. Then we have African American, French, Spaniard, Mexican culture.
I wish we really didn't miss the African American one. That would have been good.
Yeah, we can stick it next if that's okay. Next year we can put it into
Cinco
February.
de Mayo, we can do so it could be singing culture.
Oh, no, we're not.
We missed September
Oh man.
completely.
Yeah, we missed September.
That would make sense though to start off though.
Because Cinco de Mayo is here too. How is it a big deal in Texas and why is it not a big deal?
I don't know.
The district used to perform at Mission San Jose. We used to have big
I remember
performances.
now. I remember.
I was in
Going.
it.
I was in it. I remember. So I remember going.
Which
Oh,
one?
and we won. I think I won. We were in. Oh no, that's not the parade. The parade that comes at the end of the year is Culture of Arts, right? Culture of Arts. I think Culture of Arts would be good around the Mexican time frame. Because they do a lot of. I think that would be good.
Yeah.
So we should have one.
They
in
do
between.
floats and a lot of
Yeah.
the themes.
Yeah, everything is-
Fiestas. Oh, fiestas coming.
Oh yeah, so Mexican culture should be fiesta.
And then we'll be able to do
That's
what you just
April.
said, the difference between Mexican American
And still can tie into May.
And Mexican.
How many? We have 2 6 weeks
At
left,
the
so we
watered
need
down
to.
Cinco de Mayo.
So Mexican culture would have to be 3.
Okay.
It would have to be number 3, so because we have this 6 weeks.
But it's
Oh,
almost
no.
finished.
No, we just have,
No, we have
we just have, yeah, the 5th and the 6th.
So 1 or 2. Yeah.
So 1, 2. Do we have another 6 weeks? 6 weeks left?
No.
No.
Because
That
this is
would be
the
it for
first
this
one
year.
for this week.
Okay. So we have 2 6 weeks left. We have German coming and then Mexican culture coming. Now, when I talk to a different group, I know we have lots of ideas headed for the way that y'all want to bring it into your curriculum. How would we want it looking as a whole campus? I know every group's going to be a little different, but to go in with a general, basic outline for how would we want it to look? Y'all are my go-to group.
I think mentor text would probably be the best for the lower grades. Something that talks about their cultures, because you can find little short mentor texts, like books about.
There's, is it Discovery Learning? They have
Discovery
fun facts.
education,
Yeah,
yeah.
fun facts about that culture.
So they could read something about it, and then you can, like, there's a cute little book, Magdas Tortillas, have you ever read it? It's cute, and it's about, like, making tortillas and all of this stuff, so, and then they have another, like, one about tamales and stuff, so those types of things, like, those are, I don't know, to me, those are
That
little,
lend it to
that
the
lend
culture.
to the culture, where they can connect with it also, but I'm sure that, you know, there's also history and things like that that we can,
We could have speakers too, because we
Right.
have that, what's it called, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
We can have them.
or Frida also, that's another book that, you know, I checked out a lot of books about Frida Kahlo and the kids loved it. So those types of mentor texts, I'm just thinking in like one, you know, mixing culture, but
Some things we really want them to do, mentor text as a campus, discover text, or discover
Education.
education.
for fun facts, right? That she said.
Yeah.
Fun
And
facts.
then they have videos too.
Oh yeah, and then I also used to read, what's that website that we had? Tumble Books, because Tumble Books had like an Asian culture one that we did, and it talked about the kimono, and so things like that, and then the little girl had the kimono and everything. It also tied into theme, so.
How do we want to hold students accountable?
Yeah.
And it's going to be different for each grade level.
Right.
What if they do like project?
That's the best one to do.
I just don't know if the project's going to.
But
Because,
then
I mean, we know
different
that kids
aspects of the project, and then we all get the same grade.
Bring me pizza. Bring me pizza. You did good.
Yeah, because I think fifth grade has like research. There was a 6 weeks where all they did was research.
Well, yeah, because I know that she has her research. She has them researching a lot, Ms. Mills. So I think that would be good for fifth grade. You know, to do
But I
a
think
project.
fourth grade, I have that end of the year,
I think
wax
what
museum.
you do, the wax museum, where they pick somebody that they learned about the entire, somebody throughout the year. So it would have been somebody at the beginning of the year, could be somebody towards the end, you know, just somebody within that.
That made an impact.
You know, you can tell, yeah, and they just have to make sure that they explain their culture, where they came from, and what they did, and stuff like that. I think the wax museum for fourth grade is probably the best project.
Each time they do one culture, how will we hold them accountable? Oh, I love the wax museum.
Right.
But each time we do one culture, how will we hold the students accountable? I understand when we check for understanding as they go, but
I think if we break down, now, we talk about how fifth grade they're more research based now. But fourth grade, to help get them used to doing the research based, is if we have them in groups to where, for example, since we're departmentalized, if we come up with, okay, these are the groups that we're gonna have because they're ability levels and everybody can contribute to something. And then that way we give them roles, okay, these are the things that you guys have to complete by the end of the week. And this is your project. And so one person would have to look up the history, and one person would have to, get, I don't know, influential people. Another one would have to get, okay, some snippets from books that show the culture. Another one do the food, just so everybody can participate.
that's what I'm doing. Go ahead. You've been 2 months old.
No, it's a time alarm.
So to hold them accountable, we'll have some type of project, some type of assignment that we're checking for understanding that they're grasping the concept of what they're doing.
Yes.
Okay.
I think also maybe creating a Venn diagram. Well, I guess not towards the end. Or, yeah, creating a Venn diagram of, like, maybe them compared to, maybe we read about a character in a book. Pick your character out of all the books that we've read. I'm just thinking about for reading, compare and contrast. The character to yourself, to date. How are they the same? How are they different? Or maybe if you were living at this time in Texas at this time, the character was alive. If it's history,
Right.
how things would compare and contrast. I think that would be for quick, check for understanding, check the, I think that's just weekly for us when we complete.
I think these are great ideas. We're going to start with German. We're going to then go to Mexican culture. We're going to do them in 6-week time frames. We have 2 6 weeks left, so that'll get us going. We know that we have some way of keeping them accountable, whether it's a project, a Venn diagram, something in each class. Different ideas to look at for me are going to be text and culture, coming to do some presentation or getting some speakers to come in. I'll meet with different grade levels and get some of these ideas going underway there as well. And the next thing to talk about, and then God knows what else it is when is the next time that y'all are going to meet so we can get this underway and get going?
I say right before we make sure we're
Because we have 2 more weeks.
2 more weeks until, so right before, just make sure we covered all our bases and as before we go into it, if there's any other ideas that can be offered into the planning process.
Okay, so y'all will start planning now, and then I'll check in with y'all next week
Right.
individually, and then right before.
To, yeah,
So Wednesday next week, sound okay with y'all for me to check with everybody individually during your conference?
that will work.
Okay. Wednesday on conference. And how about the Wednesday before the next week? That we'll all get back together?
Yes.
All right, thank you ladies. I'm excited to see this go.
Thank you.
After the meeting, I gave the people involved a survey to help myself reflect on my practices. The survey ranged from 1, not well, to 5, very well. The teachers in the meeting ranked me very well in all areas on the survey. Some of the questions asked were the objectives on the lack of diversity on campus met? Were the TEKS objectives discussed? Were the ideas discussed and brainstormed by the teachers? Was a plan of action made that involved 1, the cultures to address, 2, ways to hold the students accountable, 3, the next meeting date, and 4, the start date for the project? Another question asked was, did you feel you were able to contribute your ideas to the project? Another question was, does the project feel like something you would be able to implement in your class with more guidance? When talking afterwards to the teachers, they shared that they gave high scores on the survey because I allowed them to provide their ideas. I listened. They felt like what they said was valued and would be used. I kept the meeting focused and continuously summed up the discussion. I did not keep them more than necessary. After reflecting on the meeting, I feel the meeting went well overall. Teachers had great ideas on the issue they had brought up. They were starting to make connections to what they are teaching in the classrooms. I am excited to see the progress that they have made the next time that we meet next week. In hindsight, I would have liked to have provided each teacher with an agenda. I had an agenda with me, however, it would have been beneficial for each teacher to have had an agenda with them as they took notes. I was surprised to see how many ideas the teachers had and how easily it was for the team to reach a consensus on how they wanted to implement the project and which cultures they wanted to use. I thought there would be a bit more debate over which culture they would want to do first, but the team came to a reasonable decision very quickly. And they used their curriculum to help guide them. Doing this video affirmed what I already knew about how to treat others and my colleagues, and how to get them to be actively involved in a project or instruction or whatever it might be. You have to allow them to share their ideas and incorporate them so that they feel valued, heard, and involved. This increases teamwork and campus culture. I also learned how important it is to go in with a plan for a meeting because people's time is valuable.